Hello. I thought I sounded like Mrs. Doubtfire there. Hello. But hello everybody. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Also, hope you guys know what Mrs. Doubtfire is. Or else that reference would have, I guess, gone over a lot of people's heads. And it would be like, why is he talking like that? 10 out of 10 Mrs. Oh, thank you. I tried. Okay, we'll be starting soon. Just give me a sec. I'm just gonna make a save file. Yeah, who's ready for some animations, breakdowns, or studies? I think I grabbed a little bit less than what I did last time, so that this time there's a little bit more time to do the study itself, or the master animation study, or a copy, I guess. But yeah, we'll be jumping into it I want to jump into it as soon as possible and have enough time to work on it. So yeah, but hope you guys are all doing well here, just so that there's no blank screen. I need to keep remembering this. You guys can take a look at the skull I painted for class while I talk. We're not painting a skull. Maybe this will give the wrong impression for anybody jumping in, but we're not painting a skull. I'm just gonna have it here, and then I'm just gonna I'll just write starting soon, so then people know. Starting soon. Oh my goodness. Anytime there's a skull. I mean, I guess Iggy last week did draw some Sans characters, so yeah. Love that movie. Yo, I love Mrs. Doubtfire as a kid. I haven't watched it since I was a kid, so I don't know how well it holds up, but man, I thought Mrs. Doubtfire was the funniest thing as a kid. It was such a good, like, after school kind of film to watch. Like, you know, it's March break, Christmas movie, you know, the teachers need to put on a film to distract the kids. Mrs. Doubtfire, safe bet. I like the colors. Oh, thank you. Oh, and we got some people glorimation applying to animation school soon. Nice. Wow, we're still early. I was like, okay, yeah, we can get started, but it's like 2:58. So for once, I'm actually quite early. But how is everybody doing? I'm doing pretty good myself. Got myself a cup of coffee, but I realize I'm like halfway through it already. Oh, new sub. Hello, Pratum. Let's get started early. I'm in. Yeah, we'll start. I guess, you know, we can start. Yeah, we'll start like a minute early. Wow, what a big change. Well, hello everybody. I almost did the whole Mrs. Doubtfire again. Hello. But I can't stop doing it now. But hello everybody. Welcome to our stream. We're gonna start a little bit early. But if you don't know who I am, my name's Josh, and I'm one of the creators or instructors here on Wing Canvas. And if you don't know who Wing Canvas is, we are a YouTube channel where we make art tutorial videos on tips, tricks, and drawing advice to better help our fellow art nerds in this art community of ours. Our mission at Wing Canvas is to make art education easily accessible to everyone, so be sure to tune in live for free lessons every Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're an art nerd too, be sure to check out our links to our social media in the description below, and check out our website for class offerings where you can get critique, guidance, and encouragement from our instructors, because we're not just a YouTube channel, we're also a school of illustration as well. And I also want to personally thank our Patreon and YouTube members for supporting our mission. YouTube members can chat with instructors and see video drafts before their release. Patreon members can level up their artwork with classes, Q&A, and live critiques, and personal support like drawovers from instructors. So So if you want to help support the channel and accelerate your learning, consider becoming a member. I think that's the fastest I've ever gone through the intro. I'm starting to become like Jesse. Maybe not as fast as Jesse. No one will ever be as fast as Jesse, but I'm starting to get there. But yeah, we're gonna jump into the stream right away. I think because of how packed this stream is going to be, I'm not gonna go into our monthly submissions, but we do have monthly submissions and there's still some time. So every month, if you guys don't know, for those of you who are new, every month we do a monthly art challenge, and it goes all the way from the beginning of the month all the way to the end. And every stream, if there's enough time, we like to shout out our community, give them a little give them a little shout out and kind of share the work that they submit in the monthly challenge. And let's check out what but this month's, I always forget what the challenges are. This month's challenge is juxtaposition. Oh, right, yeah, this one. And then there's 40 submissions. Dang, that's quite a lot. Yeah. So if you're not on our Discord, now's a great time to join our Discord and check out all the lovely submissions. I'm looking at it right now. But yeah, there's a lot of submissions in the juxtaposition art challenge right now. Again, like I said, I don't think I'll have enough time to go into them because we got a lot to run through. But if you want a chance to potentially get a shout out during our streams, the art community challenge is the best way to do so. So yeah. And I guess we'll jump right into it then. So if you guys don't know what we're doing today, we're not painting a skull. I just have this here so there's something on my screen for you guys to look at. But if you took a look at the title of the video for today's stream, we are going to be looking at different animation sequences, kind of, you know, basking in how like amazing they are, getting a chance to dissect them, break it down, see where some interesting things that, you know, I notice or maybe you guys will notice about them. And then at the end, hopefully maybe in the last hour or so, or maybe even more than an hour, we're gonna try to recreate an animation scene from one of the sequences that we looked at. So this way that we can kind of learn from professionals and kind of see what kind of techniques we can uncover from how they do things. And by the way, if we end kind of maybe early, we can, if anybody has any suggestions or recommendations for scenes that we could break down, feel free to recommend some. Yeah, because I feel like maybe we might end a little early, but I always say that and it never ends early, but yeah. Oh yeah, so Shadow Bean, you mentioned the Arcane thumbnail. Yeah, there was a little bit of a glitch, I guess, with the YouTube thumbnail. It's not, we're not doing anything Arcane themed. It just so happened that the thumbnail didn't change. It's actually supposed to be another thumbnail, but for some reason it didn't switch up. So yeah, for those of you who are maybe expecting an Arcane stream, where it's not an Arcane stream, and I also did not find any Arcane clips, which part of me is like, I kind of wish I grabbed some Arcane clips, but we did not. So yeah, no Arcane, but we're gonna be looking at some like other cool animation sequences. Most of them are quite old, except for I think one that's current, and I don't know if I repeated them. I feel like I should have maybe double checked if I repeated any sequences. But yeah, the way this is gonna go is that I'm gonna bring up a clip. It's gonna be just a short clip from an animated film, and then we're gonna kind of dissect it, break it down, take a look at what's like interesting about it, and kind of point out what are some interesting like techniques or things that the animators kind of had to figure out in order to animate this sequence. And then we'll just keep doing that. We'll be doing that for, I've got like, let's see, I've got four clips, or well, 5 clips, but we have like 5 sequences. Not 5 sequences. We have 5 clips, but 4 of them are, we're going to be going over like 4 different like series or films kind of thing. And then at the end we're going to animate. So yeah, I feel like it's class, and I was just about to ask like, anybody have any questions? But no. Nobody has questions. Do you guys always also judge animation? I think we did. We do it every now and then. Sometimes we have an opportunity for people to submit their animations, and then I can kind of give some feedback for it. But we only do that maybe like once a year or twice a year. Kind of depends on how people are feeling. But yeah, I'm wanting to animate on my tablet. What animation apps are recommended? I'm going to be using Krita. That's the app that I always use. It's pretty robust. It definitely has some limitations, but if you're doing some like simple hand-drawn animations and you still want it to look good, have a lot of like features on the timeline, I do highly recommend Krita. Toon Boom is also good, but Toon Boom, you have to pay for that one. Procreate's also good, but you need an iPad for it. So I feel like Krita is the most well-rounded, although some people have had issues with Krita on the technical side of things, where I feel like I've not really had any issues with Krita. So sometimes people go like, oh, you know, I have problems with Krita, this happened, and I'm like, oh, I've never had that, so I don't know. Does it pay to make a single panel cartoon? I don't know. Cartoon, I feel like that's more Jesse's side. I think Jesse does like comics. You can ask Jesse. Yeah. I've never had issues with Krita. Yeah, me neither. Honestly, people bring up issues and I'm just like, not issues in like bad issues, more just like technical support issues where it's like, oh, this happened with the lasso tool, or this happened with the selection tool, or how do you do this with this panel or something, and I'm just like, I don't know, that's always worked for me, so I don't know. Okay, so that's generally, I feel like, a pretty beefy intro. I guess we'll get started. And the one I wanted to start off with is actually... So I put it in the thumbnail, or not the thumbnail, but I put it in the picture for... Whoops. I put it in the picture for the community post, and I think a lot of people were like, oh, you're gonna animate Treasure Planet. I'm not gonna animate Treasure Planet because I took a look at some of the sequences and I was like, oh man, these are a little bit too hard to do. I mean, I could try it out if I had more time. I would love to do like a animation study from Treasure Planet, but it would be quite complicated just due to the amount of details and complexity of the acting. But I think there's always like there's a lot of good depth in the animation to kind of look into for these kind of films. But yes, we are looking at a good amount of Disney films. Not all of them are Disney films, but I feel like it's kind of cool to take a look at like old not MediBang. I saw someone say MediBang, but it's nice to look at some like old Disney stuff that's like hand-drawn, because I feel like there's a certain kind of magic in them that I feel like is missing from old animation that's coming out these days. Like, it's still great animation these days, but there's a magic to like the old stuff. Yeah. I think we should be good because we're not playing the whole entire film. We're literally just playing like a sequence. And the sequence that I want to play was the part where Long John Silver gets introduced. I just thought his movement and his acting's really cool. But one thing I did want to bring up, if people have never seen Treasure Planet before, I believe this is the first time where they integrated and also sorry about the quality. This is like, I guess because the movie's kind of old, the quality's not the greatest, but I believe this is the first time where they integrated a 3D element into a hand-drawn character. So like they were the same character, because usually it's maybe like a 3D environment, as you see in like Beauty and the Beast or Tarzan, where the character is 2D animated but they're in a 3D environment, or the character is interacting with another character that's 3D. I think they've done that before, but they've never incorporated 3D with 2D on the same character. So I believe this is the first time, or it's one where it's the most like complex and most like in-depth integration. And if you didn't know, like all these characters are hand-drawn, but because Long John Silver's character, I'll play a bit. I don't know if I can play the sound. Okay, if I play the desktop sound, let's see. Can you guys hear it? If I play this, I hope there's no echoing. Does the audio work? Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll lower it a little bit too. We don't need the audio to be that loud. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think this is a really cool introduction. You get to kind of see it moving because you can see his arm is super complex. There's a bunch of gears into it. There's a lot of mechanized movements in it, but the entire arm is CG, and then his character himself is 2D. And I think this is the first time they integrated two things at the same time, but also trying to make it look seamless. Like, they're supposed to feel like it's the same character and it's the same animation style. You can definitely still tell it's CG because there's a certain kind of smoothness to it. But they did a really good job. They toned down the lighting. They really mostly focused on the 2D outlines that we see in 2D animation and applied that outline in the arm itself. But it's honestly done so well, and I also think part of it is just due to, you know, Glenn Keane and his team of animators just putting so much life and movement into Silver. And this is why I also didn't want to do a study of this, because I took a look at this. I was like, yeah, there's no way I am going to be able to animate all this body movement, the fluidity of it, the acting, the depth of his hand, you know, the dexterity of his hand moving. Like, there's just so much personality and complexity to this. So I was like, there's no way, but it's so cool. It's really, really well done. And if you've never seen this behind the scene, and I believe we'll post all the videos that I'm going to use in the Discord later, so if you guys want to flip through the scenes, feel free to. But there's actually a behind the scenes breakdown. I don't think I'll play the whole clip. I'll just kind of summarize what Glenn Keane here says. But essentially, he's kind of talking about how it's their first time trying to integrate a 2D character with a CG element. And before they had the character of Long John Silver, they wanted to do some test animations first, figure out whether or not they could do it and whether or not it would work. And so they did it with Captain Hook. So I'll play this part. I don't think I'll need to talk over it. But look at that animation, so smooth. There's something about like 1920s animation that feels different. It's very fluid. But this is their test animation. And you can see that they incorporated like a CG arm into it to see if it would work. And it's like, oh, it's so cool. And then they take out the rendering and shading from the arm and only incorporated the outline to it, so that it still just feels like it's 2D animation as a whole. So that part of it is really cool. They labored like mad for this smooth animation, and they just had this technique of fluidity. Yeah, I was like thinking about like even, well, I guess we'll see it later because I'm gonna show another older Disney film, and I think just like there's something about the life and acting in animation that I feel like is kind of looked over not these days, because it makes it sound like animators aren't as good these days, but there's something about the acting and intentionality in the acting in animation that you don't really quite see as much. It's harder to do, and I think part of it is also just like the demand for animation is higher nowadays, that getting this level of dexterity and complexity in the acting and having the time to do it is just not quite there anymore. And I think because of that, we lose a lot of the fluidity and kind of the slow. Look at that. There's no cuts. This whole entire scene with John, like this whole sequence, I just realized there's no cutting in it. It's just one entire sequence. The camera doesn't move. It doesn't move that much. It just stays on John, and he just has this whole like 10 seconds of acting. It's like we don't really see this anymore, and because I think it's really hard to do, it's very time consuming, and it requires a lot from the animator and from the animation team, like the assistants and everything. And just having this one uncut like shot is a really, really like insane like feat to pull off, I think, and have that complexity in it. It's really cool. So yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because I think a big part that I think people forget about for animation is the acting part. And it's that animation is hard. Actually, well, learning the basics and fundamentals of animation is actually not too hard. Yes, animating is hard, but like learning the fundamentals like squash and stretch, those things aren't that hard. The hard part about animation is the drawing complexity of it. It's the you know, keeping consistency in the character shapes, but the other part of it is also acting. And I think a lot of people kind of forget that animation, a big part of it is learning how to make every character feel distinct from one another, have every character, you know, have personality and a history and a context to why they act the way that they do. You know, that's kind of what makes animation hard. And I think that's why I love Treasure Planet sequences, because it just, there's so much character and personality in the characters. Yeah, it's just fun, you know, good old fun Disney animation that's like, it's kind of been missing these past few years, so, you know. But oh well, we take what we could get. Okay, so that's kind of one sequence that we've looked into. Enough glazing, as the kids said. Am I using that phrase right, guys? I'm not sure, but you know, like, we've looked at that scene for quite a while. But yeah, okay, so the next one, okay, so this is gonna be the last Disney one, but I wanted to look at it because I feel like we don't really look at a lot of old school Disney animation, although I think the last time we did an animation analysis, it was also from old Disney. So I guess technically I just love looking at old Disney films because there's something about the animation that's just different. It hits different. Aaron Blaise is one who still does this sort of labor. Yeah, he does. It's there's just so much fluidity in the fur and everything too. It's really cool. Is it a good app for 2D? Or is it a good app for 2D more animation? Well, in terms of flip a clip, I heard it's good, but I think it does have limitations. I think if your computer can handle it, I think Krita honestly is probably the most well-rounded. Yes, it's kind of glitchy a little bit sometimes if you draw too much. But honestly, I think Krita's the most well-rounded. It doesn't mean it's the best at it, but it has a lot of the tools ready for you to use, and it can do quite a lot. You just won't be able, you might not be able to do things like curve animations, a little finicky on Krita. It might make your computer crash if you don't have that much RAM, but yeah. Yeah, so the next scene, as you can see, is Bibbidi Bobbidi Boop. If you've never seen this, the reason why I brought this up is because I just love the fairy godmother. Is it fairy godmother? The godmother's shape language. There's also something about like old school Disney animation, the shapes that the characters had. They're just very pleasing to the eye. There's something about the shapes and the guidelines that all these characters had to lead your eye into the movement and into the motion that these characters have. Just like the first, not even like full second, there's so much like personality in her character and in her movements that you can really track and follow her movements. And I was just like, man, just the first 10 seconds I was already like, man, look at the way she moves, look at the way she like is moving the wand. There's just a dexterity in the movement and so much precision and attention to detail in how things can move that's just like so hard to really like learn. It just requires so much years to it. It wasn't because the animation was in its golden age during... Yeah, I think this was called the gold... Well, yeah. Definitely, this was when they kind of, I think, really hit their stride at this point. I mean, I think you know, the stories don't hold up quite as well, but the animation is still, like, I think studied to this day. I bring this guy up a lot, but, like, Shiun Kim loves talking about old Disney animation because there's a certain technical skill in it that's not quite seen anymore. And, like, look at this transformation is still one of the most, like, highly regarded sequences. Like that transformation is so smooth and it's so seamless. And, oh my god, I didn't even realize that too. Like her spin, that does not look like 2D. Like you can really feel the form and volume in how, like when she's spinning. Like everything is tracked so well, but it's kind of cool because they've broken away from how Snow White did it. So like Snow White, the behind the scenes kind of story is that they rotoscoped a lot of the performances. So this was when they were first really getting into animation, and they were like, oh, how do we animate like a full character and make the performance feel real? And so they rotoscoped the reference that they filmed, and they just traced over the performance. But then a lot of people the critics were like, oh, Snow White feels really like stiff, whereas the dwarves feel very like lively and animated. Like, I guess no pun intended. Oh, Cupcake, I'll get to your question soon though, or maybe I'll answer it now. Oh, I feel like it should be about the same then. Having a iPad or a drawing tablet, like, yeah, maybe you might lose some of like the touch capabilities in it, but I feel like it should be the same. Like you're still using a pencil. Like if you had a Apple Pen, it should be about the same. The only difference is maybe the size and the touch features in, oh, you always, yeah, you just kind of have to get used to the keyboard bindings. I would say make some shortcuts. Make some shortcuts that feel natural and easy for you to like access on your free hand that's not drawing. And I would say always allocate the spacebar, or at least I always allocate the spacebar to one of the buttons on the pen. So this way you're always, because the spacebar combined with other keys on the keyboard are like for zooming in, rotating. So spacebar on one of the pen, and then maybe one other key that you use really often on the secondary button on the pen is what I would recommend. But it's really more just getting into the rhythm and feel of the shortcuts that you need when you're drawing with a tablet. Yeah. So going back to the video, yeah, there's just something about the way that it flows. I think what's really cool is just like this dress or this character's design. It looks really simple, but it's so, there's actually, everything is placed there so that you can track it, right? Like we got the shoulder pads, we got the midline right here in like around the waist area, so you can track how it's spinning and rotating. I think all these little elements are there to help make sure the character still feels like it has a lot of like volume and size to the character, and that it's not just a flat character rotating in different angles. I feel like because you have all these little elements to it, when she rotates and spins, you can really track and feel that it's like a three-dimensional character. Because man, that looks so smooth. My goodness, I didn't realize just how smooth that turn and spin was. It looks really, really like good, and man, that's not easy to do. Jeez. But yeah. They have something around the neck. Does she? Oh, she does have something around the neck. I didn't even realize that. You know what? That might also help with like distancing or like spacing and proportions. I wouldn't be surprised. So for anybody who does any kind of character designs, there's a difference between doing character designs for just for the heck of it, like maybe for comic books or manga or video games, because you can kind of get away with the 3D model. But with 2D animation, you're not only designing a good character, but you're also paying attention to whether the shapes are recognizable and if they stand out or not, because one, you kind of want to make the audience be able to recognize what they're looking at and able to track certain things. So having a big cloak and all these big shapes allow the viewer to be able to kind of latch onto these objects and follow it and track it easier. I think so I think the choker, let's see, what are some people saying? Chokers help separate the head and the body. I think it's there, but if I were to think about it, it's there to also add volume. So like whenever she's dipping her head, like when she's looking up and she's looking down, you can really kind of tell what angle she's turning in because because there's a ring there. It helps with the perspective. You know that she's tilting her head down. You understand the position of her head. And so what I was also trying to get at beforehand was that sometimes the design of the character, you kind of want to keep in mind of how that might help the animators down the line. So having certain kind of design elements here and there, you want to keep it simple, but you also want to include it so that the animators have an easier time tracking the character as it's moving in 3D. Having certain kind of complicated elements like these, well, not complicated, but like the shoulder pads, these little, I don't know, fluffs on the side, like those things help us track the 3-dimensionality of the character. So imagine if Cinderella didn't have these puffs on the side, or if she didn't have the shoulder pads, and if she didn't have the choker, everything would feel very flat, and it would be hard for us to kind of get a sense of dimension. But because we have these two opposing puffs and these two opposing shoulder pads, when she spins around, you understand the dimensionality and the 3-dimensional space that's happening with the character as she's turning. So I think with character design, especially for animation, there's a little bit of more attention that needs to be placed in, because you can't just put anything there randomly. You kind of have to put them there so that it has a purpose and it helps with the animation down the line. Because it got the shape of neck. I guess right, you see the cylinder. Yeah, I think it could be a decorational choice, like an aesthetic choice too, but I think when they put it there too, it also helps. Like you can see her head is tilting because of how the cylindrical shape of the choker is wrapping around her neck. If we're gonna draw over them, yeah, I think like having these big identifiable shapes also makes it easier to draw over and over again. So I think like designing characters for 2D animation especially, it's not about just making a cool looking character, it's also keeping in mind of your animators. You want to make sure that the animators are able to keep track of these things as well, express the 3-dimensional qualities of the characters as the characters are moving, but also make the characters identifiable and have like interesting shapes to them. It's a really, really hard task and job to have, but those who are really, really good at it are, you know, like Shiun Kim, are kind of at the top of the game of simplifying shapes and making things legible from like far away. Yeah, but yeah, I feel like we went on quite a long bit with the Cinderella, but I wanted to point this one out because I thought it was like always like shouting out old animation. You know, even though it's not like that old. Okay, so the next one, man, I haven't watched this movie in so long. Every year around like fall, October, November time, I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch this movie with over complex animation. Make sure you don't overwhelm him. Yeah. Josh is I am your average animator. I'm just doing it for the fun of it. But yeah, this movie is a movie that I'm always like, I need to rewatch this because Iron Giant is so good. And this is the coffee scene. So if you guys have never seen Iron Giant, here's the coffee scene. I'll play it out a little bit. Again, I'm just gonna talk over it just for safety reasons. But again, I was actually thinking of maybe animating this one, but then I realized that the acting is really subtle, and
I said I'm hip.
I'm hip. I love that P. But yeah, the acting is so subtle. It's a lot of like really intentional slow movements, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna be hard to do, but it's so good. Dean's like just expressions is so fun to look at. But also Hogarth, is it Hogarth? His movements are also like, the acting is so good. It's so good. I love it.
I'm gonna have some coffee. What do you want? Some milk?
Also, a little interesting tidbit about Dean's face. Apparently I heard that his face isn't a regular 3-dimensional face. So they actually cheated a lot with how his face turns. And I remember, I think Brad Bird was, or the lead animator for Dean would have to tell his assistants, is like, hey, his head doesn't look like this at a 3/4 angle. It's not a normal, usual 3/4 angle. Something about his like cheek to jaw or cheek to chin, that alignment over there doesn't follow the conventional rules of the human face. I think like the way it turns isn't like fully 3-dimensional. They cheat a bit so that they capture this kind of flat, angular shape in his face. I feel like you might see it as his head turns. So let's see if we can catch it. Yeah, like here it's a bit too flat, I would say, and that's not a bad thing. It's kind of like almost like a decision in terms of design. So his face feels more, maybe I'll draw it, this will make more sense if I draw it. But typically when a person like turns their head 3/4, you know, we get our cheekbone and then our jaw. The face usually angles in, and then you get to the chin. And even if you had a really square-jawed person like this, it still curves inwards. But if you look at how Dean's face looks, it's not... I love how we're just analyzing Dean's face. You notice how it's like flat? So it means that his face shape, 3-dimensionally, literally is a cylinder. Like his face, if we were to like break down the 3-dimensional shape of his face is like this. He has a literal like cylinder for a face, which is kind of odd. Like this is what Dean's face looks like in the movie, but this is typically more natural to how our face is like. So I think that's kind of what they were saying. I might have the information wrong, but I remember there was like some behind the scenes breakdown on like his face, and the supervising animator needed to like teach the assistants of like, no, his face has a very particular way of how it's animated because it's not structurally correct, which is really cool. It adds a little bit of artistic license to it. Yeah.
I drink it. I'm hip.
I don't know. This is espresso, you know? It's like CoffeeZilla.
With the handsome man in the beast. Handsome man in the beast. I don't know what movie you're referencing, but maybe. The chin's also like, you notice how it like sticks out like this, but when he turns his head 3/4, it doesn't actually like jut out. You notice how like his face has a very flat look to it. It's very Shield looking like, but you notice how like they cheat a lot. His chin doesn't stick out. His face is oddly like flat, like how it just does this. There's no... You see how Hogarth's... That's a weird expression to stop at, but you see how Hogarth's like it tapers in towards the chin. I know this is a little bit more of like a front facing 3/4, whereas like Dean's doesn't. It kind of stays flat. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I really love this. Again, more acting, just a lot of interesting character studies and breakdowns for this for animation. I love it. It's a lot of lip syncing and a lot of just like talking and acting with the hands. Yeah, it's so good. I love it. Talking about Beauty. Yeah, I was thinking Beauty and the Beast, but I'm like, I know it's based on the French movie, but Beauty and the Beast from Disney's not French, so I don't know. Are you talking about Beauty and the Beast or another one? Oh, Beast and the Princess, the handsome. I don't know. When you want to do fun face scenes, yeah, I think there's so much in There's so much in the Iron Giant. Okay, the next one. Let me see. Let me try to find my... Too many tabs open. Okay, so the next one, and this is going to be the last one, because this is the one we're actually going to study. And maybe after all the sequences we looked at, you might think like, Josh, you're crazy. All the other ones were much more manageable to do. Why did you think that this is one that you could do? And I'm like, I don't know. This one seems more fun to do. So we'll do this one. And if you guys were not here for my last my last animation analysis study stream, you guys know how much I love the Hades trailers. It's because I love the way they animate the Hades trailers. There's so much action, and to be fair, action's just way more easier to animate than acting sequences. So yes, I'm not going to animate the whole thing because that's crazy. I don't think I have the skill or the time to animate all of this, but I'm going to be animating this part right here. So the reason, and I'll explain why I'm animating, or I'm going to try to animate this one sequence here. I'm only going to animate the main character. And the reason why is because this whole sequence is really just 3 poses. So if you guys were here in my last Hades trailer analysis, I guess, you will know that the action sequences are usually quite they're quite simple, actually. There's not a lot of frames in there, and it's the same thing with this one. If you look at it, I'll play it through. It seems very fluid, but it's really just 3 poses. It's just the kick over here, and she's moving a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it's just mostly like curve animations. And then we got one pose where she's about to jump off, and then we have an anticipation build-up pose, a transitional breakdown pose, and then we got the kick. So it's really 3 poses. We got, in terms of like key poses, we got the kick, we got the, I guess, hold off pose, and then we got the kick off pose, like jumping off. So yeah, it's a very simple pose. And yes, the reason why it's easy to do is because it's fast paced, because it's really 3 main poses happening over the course of, like, this is a really fast sequence. This is like less than a second for sure. Like 1, like that spin. So I'm not taking the whole thing, but the spin itself, that kickoff spin is less than a second. And because of that, it's maybe even like less than half a second. So it's really 3 frames over the course of 12 frames. So it's like, oh, I really don't have to do too much work, but it still looks cool in the end. So yeah, this is what we're gonna be doing. And will I be able to pull it off? I don't know, we'll see. I guess that's kind of the fun of these master studies, is that we'll see what we can pull off. The first one's great. I have not played the second one because I'm waiting for them to just release the full thing, and I want to play it on the PlayStation so I can get them trophies. I'm not a trophy hunter, but for some games I'm like, I will get the platinum for it. So I've gotten the platinum for Hades 1, and I want to get the platinum for Hades 2, so I'm waiting for them to release the full thing, and then then I'll get it. Even though the company isn't well known for quality, they did have some neat little shortcuts, people. Oh, yeah. I think a lot of Looney Tunes and like the studios outside of Disney, because the budget's lower, maybe they had less animators as well. They had to find like interesting shortcuts to with speed and movements that I think people are still using to this day, and like especially for high speed action type sequences. Okay, let me just bring it up so I have something to animate next to. I don't know how I want to show this, so because here, I'm just maybe animation already takes up so much space. I'm like, should I have this on the screen too? I don't know. We'll see. This will be like my reference shot, basically. So when doing like kind of like a breakdown analysis shot, I will usually like to kind of play the sequence a few times over, just so that I have a rough breakdown as to what is the movement and kind of like the goal for this sequence. So kind of like what I said, I'm probably gonna want to start with this pose. And this is my key pose here, and then the other key pose is probably maybe this one, and then this one. So we have one where the feet comes in contact, and then the one where it builds up momentum, and then the kickoff. Oh yeah, screenshot. Yeah, I'll screenshot it. Thank you, Kevin. I was gonna screenshot it, and I completely forgot that I can screenshot it. Okay, we'll screenshot this one. And I'm not gonna draw the other character because that would be too much to do. Whoops. Should be able to clip it. Yeah, I'm just gonna screenshot it. Sorry, the clicking is because I'm pressing it so I can jump through the frames. Okay. This is good. This one's a good one. I might still have it on the side just so that I can look at it, but yeah. He's not a trophy hunter, but he's hunted trophies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, we'll say this one is. I feel like the other one's more of like, again, another breakdown pose. Now, again, this is probably still going to be super, super hard to do, but I think out of all the ones I showed, this one's probably the more manageable one to try out. Okay, I think this one's a good one to transition to. Okay. I guess in this case then, I'll just have this on the side then. This will just be for me. You guys can look at the screenshots. I will look at the video itself. Okay, I'm just gonna move this back then. Nope, that's not what I want. Oh my goodness, I don't know, did I mention this, Kevin? I got an iPhone, and like I used to have a Google phone. I got an iPhone. I hate the iPhone. I hate the keyboard texting. Like the text box for it. Oh my goodness. The transition pain is real. Yeah. You should clip. Oh yeah, it'll be easier playing it on loop. Oh, clip the bit that I want? Oh, you know, I never really thought of that. I guess I could have clipped it. You know, it's fine. We'll just screenshot it, and then I'll just flip through the clip on YouTube on my side. I mean, you guys won't be able to see it, but I don't think we'll need to see it, so I'll be fine. Now you must get... I do have a Mac. I always had a Mac for university. I think that's why my sister was like, you should just get an iPhone. Because you have a Mac already. The ecosystem's there. Buy everything. No. I'm so annoyed with the iPhone. The texting box is terrible. I hate it. I just want to, like, if I make a typo mistake and I want to change something, so it's such a pain in the butt to, like, edit the words. I hate it. It's terrible. Let's see. Don't need background. Yeah, I think this is about it. Paint layer 1. Yeah, I guess we'll keep it like that. You know, we'll start with we'll start with good old 50. See where that gets us. You're trapped. I know. I know. I just need to get better at typing. I know it's a skill issue. Okay, so for a breakdown, kind of like what I was doing. Oh, whoops. Kind of what I was doing here is that I would like segment a scene. Now, again, just kind of like a reminder, because animation is so time consuming, and because there's so much that can go into an animation, just keep in mind that something you might be like, oh, it's just 5 seconds or it's just 10 seconds. That's actually a lot to animate. So just keep in mind of how much work actually is in something, and in order to kind of give you a scale of how much work will go into a sequence, just count how many frames something will be. So 1 second is 24 frames. So if you're going to be doing animating on ones, meaning you animate every single frame, that's 24 drawings. And if you're going to be doing 10 seconds, that's 240 frames. Now, even if you're drawing half of that, 120, like you're animating on twos, that's still 120 drawings roughly. So just keep in mind that 10 seconds might sound short because of we're so used to 10 seconds not being that long. When you're animating, 10 seconds is a lot to kind of put into. So when you're kind of doing an animation scene study, just keep in mind of how much time you might want to invest or drop for doing a study. So that's why for my study sequence, it's literally like maybe 2 seconds long, I think. And all we're doing is just this one simple action shot. And so when I'm analyzing a scene, maybe I'll play it slow so I can kind of talk over it. Even for analyzing a scene like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out what their key poses are. So key poses are kind of like the main pose and the main kind of plot. You can kind of think of like every animation sequence that you're doing. Think of it like a story. There's an overarching plot that you're trying to animate. And in this one, it's the kick and then the spin flip kind of thing. So it's like, okay, how did they do that? How did they plan that out, and how they set it? So when you're doing kind of like a study, you're almost kind of like a scientist, but you're working backwards. You're kind of trying to dissect and strip down like what was their planning process to get to the final stage. So I'm trying to look for the key poses, and that's kind of where we got these poses here. So for me, this is kind of like the initial starting pose. This is kind of like the hold, build up momentum kind of a pose, and then this is like the final kickoff pose that this one sets up. So the second pose sets up the build up, and then this one's the release for it. This sets the stage, this builds up momentum and kind of the motion, and then this is the release. The third one's the release. So in my mind, these are kind of like the key poses for the most part. And once I draw those down and analyze them, I'm gonna then animate like, okay, what were some of the transitional breakdown poses? So breakdown poses are essentially transitional poses. How do these transitional poses get from one key pose to the next one? And we'll go break those down afterwards. So for right now, we're just gonna be doing and working on the key poses. And then if we have time, I'll do the transitional poses. But it's not gonna be easy. It's still gonna, be kind of tricky, but this will be kind of like a good figure drawing exercise as well, in a way. You don't destroy your hand for more frame, guys. Transitional. Yeah, that's kind of like how I like to think about it. Is like breakdowns are transitionals. It's kind of like if I have a ball and I need the ball to get up here, breakdowns are trying to figure out like how does the ball get from here to here? Did it go here? Did it go here? Is it here? Is it here? So figuring out the trajectory is the breakdown. It's figuring out like how did they plan it? Because where you put the breakdown will determine kind of the action, the speed, the personality of the motion itself. I'm tired. Maybe it's time to go get some sleep, It's okay, it's a Sunday. Sundays, you're allowed to be lazy. But also, right now, we're just, we get some time to chill, We did a little bit of some animation appreciation, looking at some things. And right now, we get to, you can kind of treat this as like a chill and draw, where I'm just going to talk a little bit. And I'm just going to draw while I talk. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of like a figure study. So it's very similar to how I would do a normal figure study. Figure out where the head is. Figure out where the shoulders are and like the trajectory of the shoulders. And then also figure out the trajectory of the body. Because the shoulders are usually separated from the rib cage and the torso. So I'm just gonna kind of analyze, like, how did they do this breakdown. And that's why I kind of said in the beginning, like, animation's not... I should say learning animation's not actually that hard. It's more of, like, mastering animation and learning the... like, how to get really consistent with it. That's the hard part of animation. Don't get me wrong, animation is hard, but learning and understanding the fundamentals, like squash and stretch, and learning how timing works, that is the stuff that everybody kind of gets caught up on, and it's like, oh, that's what makes animation hard. And it's like, no, what makes animation hard is the drawing part of it and the acting part of it. Those the two things go hand in hand. You can get really good at drawing, and you might be a really good draftsman, but you might be a really bad actor. So you have to kind of be both, which is not easy to be. Yeah. What beginners need to focus on? Focus on getting the fundamentals down at the very least. It's going to be a mixture of practicing your drawing skills and the basic understanding of motion and timing. So learn how to do a ball movement. A lot of people joke around and clown on, like, the whole ball movement, but here's the thing about ball movement is, like, if is the whole dodgeball phrase. If you can animate a ball, you can animate anything. Like, obviously it's gonna be a lot of hard work in animating, like, people, but if you want to learn the principles of animation, learn how to animate a ball. Because if you can animate a ball, you can animate anything. It's just whether or not you can draw anything. That's the question. That's the real struggle in question. But beginners focus more on the fundamentals of timing, and then once you get the timing down, then focus on the drawing capability and your drawing part of it. And if you're not trying to draw characters, or you're not trying to draw, like, super realistic things, that's okay. Focus on then, like, personality and movement. And I think the other thing too, and I was talking about this with one of the animation students, is that animation is one of those art mediums where it's all about experimenting. Don't be afraid to experiment. And I think it's one of those where it really is all about experimenting. And I'm not saying experimenting in terms of, like, being weird or, like, oh, I tried something real gnarly this time. That's not what I mean by, like, experimenting with animation. It's more of, like, experimenting with timing. So it's like, oh, if I slowed down the ball like this, or if I animated the motion like this, how does that change the animation? How does that change the feel of the pose? If I change the position of the ball from here to here, how does that change the feel of the momentum? If I make it go this fast, have the animation sequence take 5 seconds instead of 10 seconds, how does that change the feel of the animation? All these things, when you take them into consideration, is what changes the feel of animation, and that's where the whole experimenting comes from. Focus on the principles of animation. Yeah, I think that's a good place to start too. There's rules for animation, and there's kind of quote-unquote principles and rules to begin with, because animation is very technically driven. But once you understand the technicalities and you understand how to, like, push and pull them, then that's where I would say, like, I highly encourage experimentation. Try things out. Play around with timing. Play around with stretch. Play around with the believability of timing. So animating balls and practice drawing. Yeah, that's honestly a good, really good place to start when it comes to just trying to animate something. Don't try your hand at trying to draw, like, a walk cycle first, or animating a character, or like a talking sequence, because you're gonna be really maybe discouraged, I guess, with the progress, because of just how technical those things are going to be. Yeah. Focusing on what you want what you want to animate, like a cat. I would say like that's the end goal, but with animation, it's because it's so well. Again, it depends on your goal for animation. I think if you're like, you know what, you don't really want to do like super realistic fluid animation, that's totally fine. You can kind of just try your hand at it, have fun with it. But if you find out that things are like not working so well, then I would say go back to the fundamentals, understand why animation works the way that it does. But yeah, having an end goal of like what you want to animate, yeah, having an end goal is good because then it kind of gives you a purpose. It sounds so jokes. It gives you a purpose for why you're animating. You know, have you studied any scenes from the movie Akira? Akira is really, it's not really, but man, that movie is, it's not what I was expecting it to be. I watched it. I can't remember where I watched it. I think I watched it in film class. And I was like, man, this is weird. This is one weird movie. I need to give it a second shot because I did not love it as much as I think most people did, which is fine. But I need to like give it another shot. I realized that like, there's something about it that people clearly love, and I am not one of those people. which is okay. But I kind of want to rewatch it. It's been a while since I've watched it. But Ghost in the Shell is my favorite. That sequence where Major is tearing that robot in the end. I think that's everybody's kind of like favorite sequence. Just like the beauty of that, the muscle anatomy in that sequence. If people know what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm referencing. But man, that's shot where she's trying to rip open that mech, and like all the muscles are just activating. I'm trying to find like a good word to describe that scene because it's a pretty gruesome scene. But yeah, that scene where she's ripping open that mech is oof. The anatomy breakdown in that is wild. Akira is a weird movie. Yeah, I think I just didn't know what to expect going into it. But, over the years of watching so many movies, I've kind of built up this, I guess, mentality where it's like, look, I will always give a movie another chance, especially if it's highly, highly regarded. Just because, if your expectation going into it was, I think you can have wrong expectations going into a movie. And if you have the right quote unquote correct expectations going into a film, it can greatly change the way you appreciate a film and how you like end up viewing it. So I want to go back in and give Akira another shot just to see like if my thoughts have changed for it. But yeah, it is a weird movie, and it is not what I was expecting from it. But the animation is really good. The animation is stellar. But my favorite of the classics is Ghost in the Shell, which I guess some people would be like, oh, of course it's Ghost in the Shell. Everybody loves Ghost in the Shell. I don't know why I'm talking like that, but everybody loves Ghost in the Shell. Oh, dude, I watched a little bit of Standalone Complex. It was cool. I think I watched it at a time too where I was just not in the mood for that type of storytelling. I was in such a mood for, I think, continuous overarching plot, whereas like Standalone Complex is more episodic and it's like Major and friends going on adventures, taking on weird cases and everything. And I was just like, I want an overarching story. I think that's why the first time I watched Cowboy Bebop, I was not. I didn't really love Cowboy Bebop in the beginning because I was expecting an overarching story. And then when it didn't have an overarching story, I was like, what is this? Why do people love this? But then now I love Cowboy Bebop. I think Cowboy Bebop's great. Also, I've never seen it. It is classic, but also never seen it. Wait, you mean like for me? No, I've seen Akira. It's just I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like I need to rewatch it. Cowboy Bebop is terrible? No, Kevin, really? Oh, wow. It's okay. I don't like One Piece, so you can also dislike Cowboy Bebop. We're we are this is our this is our this is our where we have differing opinions. Attack on Titan is the best. I like Attack on Titan. Honestly, I think they did the anime dirty. I think they shouldn't have released it in the way that they released it. Like, just finish it, and then when it's done, then release it. Because man, when that final season came up, I was just like, what's happening again? Like, what's going on? Why are these? Who are these people again? Like, what are we doing? Where do we end at last time? And it was just such a disappointing kind of adventure. Jeez. But I enjoyed Attack on Titan. I think a lot of people didn't enjoy like the last season or like the end. I didn't think the end was that bad. A lot of people like to hate on the end and be like, "Oh, the ending's terrible." I thought the ending was fine. I thought it was okay. It was interesting, like the concept at the end. I'm not gonna spoil what it is, but at the end, I thought it was kind of interesting what it's like implying about like the world and everything. Good philosophical kind of observation about humans, about us humans. But yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I liked it. I tried one, but I got really bored and couldn't make it. What? Wow, that's different. I've never heard anybody get bored of it. Were you not intrigued? Are you? Oh my goodness, this is like the only time where I could say, were you not entertained? Like I love, like I showed my friend Gladiator one time, and I was like, "Are you not entertained?" is such an iconic phrase. But then I realized, like, when would you ever get a chance to say, "Are you not entertained?" But yeah, I guess now's the best time to use it. Were you not entertained? How? But how? It's so like intriguing. Did you not find it like intriguing? Just like the mystery of like the world and everything. Cause I think that's like what keeps it going, right? Like you watch it and you're just like, man, how did you're questioning everything, right? You're like, oh man, how did they, like, where did these titans come from, and like why do they look like humans, and I don't know, everything that they set up about the world, I thought it was like fascinating. Oh, by the way, so we're going to the next pose. I did pretty much like just a rough sketch of the first key pose, and then I have the sequence on my other monitor, so I wanted to see basically how the body was bending. So I wanted to see, like, okay, the body's moving forward, but I can kind of see that it's the pivoting point is obviously going to be the hips right there. So that's kind of what I'm trying to transition, is it moving from the hips forwards. Now the character does move forward just due to like the motion of it, so I might keep that in mind as I'm drawing it. I just thought it was boring. Nah, that's okay. To each their own. Honestly, that's kind of how I feel about music. I don't know how you guys... Okay, I'm pretty sure most people here don't buy their music, but when HMV was a thing, man, isn't that a flashback? Maybe some of you guys don't even know what HMV is. You probably... Well, yeah, in America there's HMV. But every time I bought music at HMV, I'd just be like, don't judge me. Don't judge me for the music that I listen to. Let me listen to what I want to listen to. I feel like with music, it's harder to adopt that mentality. I feel like music is the most judgmental kind of art hobby that people can have. Whereas like with movies and shows, I think people can be like, oh, I didn't like it, and people would just be, oh, okay, that's fair, that's okay, you don't have to like it. To each their own kind of thing. But then I feel like with music, it's more like, oh, you listen to Taylor Swift? Yo, why are you listening to Taylor Swift? That's lame music. And I'll be like, don't judge. Don't judge. I'm not saying I listen to Taylor Swift or not. I'm just like, you know, I'm just using her as an example. But I feel like with music, it's the easiest one to judge and like look down upon. Whereas like with movies, games, shows, people are less judgmental about it. Like if you told me you watched The Bachelorette, I'd be like, that's not for me. I wouldn't watch that. But you know what? I understand people like, you know, it's like fast food. You know, The Bachelorette is like fast food, and some people really, really like to eat fast food all the time, and that's okay. I just don't want to eat fast food all the time. Josh has dude, there's a Sunrise Records near me, and there's this one section where it's just all Taylor Swift music. Like her vinyls are there, the CDs. I think at some point there were even like the cassette tapes were there. It was like everything was there because she was re-releasing all her versions, and I was just like, man, like that, like, geez, so much Taylor Swift. And I think at some point it was like going on sale too, because it was just like, it looked like nobody was buying it, because I don't think people in Scarborough is just, that's not the demographic maybe for Taylor Swift. I don't know. People aren't that into it. I thought it was funny just because I was just like, no one's buying Taylor Swift. That's kind of okay. They just don't sell music now. No, okay, HMV is still a thing, but it's not the same. You know, like we don't have like the full store. Like it isn't Toys R Us now. It's not the same, Kevin. I made Josh mission saying, "Am I not entertained?" Yeah. I didn't really got into it, but Yu Yu Hakusho barely got. I never got into Yu Yu Hakusho. I know people really like it. It's like the version before Hunter x Hunter, but I don't know. Okay, I also don't really like Hunter x Hunter. I think it's kind of like, it's fine, but maybe it's I need to go deeper into Hunter. I don't know. Oh, they don't. Oh, you're saying HMV doesn't sell music? No, they still do. They just team up with Toys R Us now, like two dying industries teamed up together so that they can still stay alive, you know. You bought a CD yesterday? Oh, nice. What? Most of the time I just get my CDs for free from my dad, but I still buy music. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, maybe this sounds really morbid, but like when my dad passes away, sometimes like all that music, I guess I would take on all that music. I don't know. Sometimes I think about that. It's like, what happens to all the stuff that we have? Like when I die, all the comic books and all the art books that I have, like what's gonna happen to it? Like if I don't have kids, like who will get them? You know? Wow, such existential conversations. Honestly, sometimes I kind of want to. I did want to buy 1989 just to like check it out, but I don't know. That's true. You can't buy her old country. Yeah, those are collector items now. The old Taylor Swift albums. Yeah. Starstead Guy? What is a Starstead Guy? What's Starstead? Never heard of that. I got bored. Oh man. Basically, me and Kevin, our tastes in anime do not align with one another. Kevin, our anime tastes were just not meant to be. Okay, what about Code Geass, Kevin? Have you seen Code Geass before? What did you think of Code Geass? I love Code Geass. But it's also because it's like the second anime that I ever watched. You know, what? You've never seen Code Geass? Oh, you need to watch that. That is... Okay, did you like Death Note then? Because if you like Death Note and you like mech, then I think you'll really like Code Geass. But if you don't, maybe you won't like it. I don't know. Also, I haven't seen Code Geass since like when I first watched it, which is years ago. Excuse me. I don't know how well it holds up. There's a chance that it does not hold up well, but I'm not too sure. But I highly recommend it. I love Code Geass. Code Geass was awesome. I was also trying to figure out like how they're deconstructing like the head here. The hard part about doing like animation analysis with characters is that because everybody draws human characters differently, certain kind of, I guess, drawing habits that you might have is going to be different from the animators, and it just makes it a little bit harder to pull off sometimes. Love Death Note? Oh, then you're good. I think you would love Code Geass then, Kevin. You should try it. I think you would love it. Alright, that looks pretty good. It looks like it connects. Also, I think I'm gonna move her forward just a little bit. Oh yeah, what happened to the other arm? Is the arm's just hovering down here? I think I found it. I think this is the hand down here. That's a little weird, but it's the hand. Okay, I've watched, well, going back to Hunter x Hunter, I watched up to the bug arc, and then after that I've never caught up with it. I've never seen it. I thought it was fine. I think the power system's really, really cool, but the story is just, I don't know. Maybe I just like trash shonen. Like, I want that like typical Naruto Bleach approach with like the shonen storyline. I don't know. I'm basic like that. But it's fine. Like, I think Hunter x Hunter's fine. I don't know. I know people like hype it up a lot. It was like, oh, best thing ever. I love Hunter x Hunter, and I'm like, it was all right. Like, it's fine. Oh, Star said his music grew. Oh, okay. Honestly, I'm always down to take music recommendations, guys. Yeah, I think my friends sent me the updated one. It's like the yeah, because he sent me both. Yeah, because he had them, and he sent me. He was like, "Oh, I've given you the old version, but the old version is, you know, it's got that old animation feel to it. But you can also watch the new version." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Never seen Code Geass. Saw Death Note live action. What? Why would you watch the live action Death Note? That seems kind of okay, I guess. Okay, go. I know we went on a little bit of tangent, but okay, what I'm trying to do now is figure out the trajectory of the motion. So for anybody ever trying to go into like animating characters, we always move in an arc type of motion trail. So whenever you're trying to track the motion of something, look for the motion trail. And it's usually always going to be moving in an arch. So you'll notice that when our character here, when she jumped, it's jumping in an arch like movement. But then when she kicks off, this is what I'm trying to look for now, is like, how is her body, like, what's the motion trail now? So she's kicking off, and I think she moves back up for this pose. So meaning that we started here. I think I'm going to have her character move up, but also then arch it over to like maybe around here, being the center of mass for the kick, for the waist. So I'm using the waist as a little bit of like a tracking point, just because it's kind of like the anchoring part of her body in this entire motion trail. Because her body's bending forward, her arms are moving all over the place. it makes it so that the torso and the chest aren't like great for tracking. But if I use this part, which is where she's pivoting around the most, which is like the waist pelvis area, it's a good place to kind of track roughly what the motion trail is going to be. So that's what I'm kind of using, and that's what I was looking for in the video, is I'm trying to look for these anchor points that she's pivoting in. And a little bit, I guess, of a lesson for just 3D animation in general. When you're 3D animating, usually characters, and I'm just going to draw, crappy T-pose character here. But usually, this is our character. When you get an 3D animated character, it comes with a pivoting point in the middle that gives you like an arrow, and then another arrow, and then another arrow. But then at the bottom of the legs, you get another pivoting point, or this is more like a moving point. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because when we're animating in 2D, you can kind of think of moving the human body in this way too. The lower one, this one, moves it in terms of like three-dimensional position, 3D positioning. Whereas this one moves like the hip, like the center point for the hip. I guess you can think of it like that. The center of gravity is like an anchor point. And so when you're thinking about like how a character is like bending or pivoting or repositioning themselves, I like to think of it in these two kind of positions, like where are these two things located at. And by the way, this second 3D positioning anchor point, it's not the feet, it's more of like the overall, like overarching character's positioning. Imagine like there's a kind of like center point within the entire character, and wherever you move the second anchor point, wherever you move it, that middle ball follows it and it moves the entire character. Whereas if you move the first anchor point, it kind of moves and bends the character at the hip. But it's like, I like to think about it in these two ways, just because I guess when I learned animation, I learned it in 3D animation. But I think it really helps understanding kind of like the anchor point of the character. Where's most of the weight? How's the character kind of bending and transitioning their weight when they're moving around? Because when you're breaking down references or you're doing an animation study, it's important to look for the animation trail, and it's also important to look for how the character is pivoting and moving around in their environment. Yeah. Okay, now we can go back to talking about anime. Oh, wait, someone asked. Oh, Shadowbean. I don't know if you're still here. But, favorite anime. I think me and Iggy talked about this. I'm not too sure. I feel like I say Code Geass or Eureka 7, but it's just because those are my first animes I've ever watched. I mean, Kevin's gonna love this answer. I think I'll honestly give it to like Cowboy Bebop. There's something about the world and the atmosphere and the just like the characters and the music and the sounds, just like the world building. I really love it. But yeah, I love Cowboy Bebop. I think Cowboy Bebop's great. Oops. Wait, Kevin, do you have a favorite anime? Like, what's yours then? Because the hip is really like complex on this pose though, I'm just gonna simplify it first. And same thing with the torso, I'm just gonna simplify it into a shape, which is technically what you guys should be doing anyways when you do like a figure drawing, is to simplify. But I'm also looking at like the shoulders and like, okay, the shoulder it'd be maybe like around here. Something like this, probably. No, is it actually? Is it actually your favorite day? Okay. Okay, I was getting, I was in line for some jerk chicken over this week, and I tried to get back into One Piece, like reading it. I had it downloaded on my phone so I could like read it while I was waiting in line. I didn't get very far. I'm still on the Big Mama arc, and I'm in the forest. So if you're like curious what part of the arc I'm on the forest part where they're stuck in the forest and they're looping and they're trying to figure out like what's going on and how to escape it. So that's where I'm at right now. My real favorite taking OP out of the equation is long. My real favorite taking OP out of the equation is long horizon. Wait, what is that? Is that like an arc? Like you would take out an arc and that would be what makes it your favorite? Is that what you're saying? Let me see. Also, I want to make sure I get the proportions relatively correct. No, it's another anime. Oh. Log Horizon. Not long. Yo, what? Yo, same here. One Piece is too long. But I mean, we talked about this on our me and Iggy's team up stream. If you guys want to hear me and Iggy talk about One Piece, because Iggy loves One Piece and I am a I don't hate One Piece. I'm just kind of like I'm in there for the history, you know? Because I'm just like I want to see this thing end and I want to be there when it ends. And I want to be there for this moment of manga history where the longest running series finally comes to an end. I want to be there, you know, when it happens. So that's kind of why I like I'm reading it and trying to keep up with it, but Oda's not making it easy, you know, Kevin. It's not easy to try to keep up with. Okay. This is a cool pose though. It's really dynamic. It's really neat. I love it. It's or is it? Okay, wait, Kevin, have you seen Samurai? Has anybody seen Samurai Champloo? I mean, this is go for anyone. I feel like Samurai Champloo, if you don't like Cowboy Bebop, maybe you might like Samurai Champloo a little bit better, just because Samurai Champloo is a bit more streamlined. I actually personally think the stories and the tales in Samurai Champloo is better than Cowboy Bebop. Like the individual kind of tales and stories and adventures that they go on, I think it's more interesting. But I think the overall world of Cowboy Bebop and the characters are more interesting in Bebop than Samurai Champloo. I highly recommend Samurai Champloo. It's like it's not too long either. I think it's only about like 24 episodes. Yeah, 24 episodes, really not that long. Very straightforward series. Like it's one of those series that I think you can just like put on the side while you're like eating dinner or eating lunch, and you just need something on the TV while you're doing your thing. Yeah, it's not a very intense or dense show, but the stories that are told are really well done. I really enjoy the short stories that go on in that series. Okay, I'm like just gonna draw this and see if this works. I don't even know if this is gonna work or not. Like for this pose, I mean, I think I'm connecting them overall not too bad so far. It's more just like I'm right now not too sure if they'll connect, but we'll see. My favorite anime is Bungo Stray Dogs. Oh yeah, I had a student who recommended that to me. I haven't watched it yet though. Oh, well that's nice. Maybe I'll check it out. I have heard good things about Bungo Stray Dogs. Have you seen Free Rent? Oh, that sounds so Oh, that's the one with the lady, the elf character lady that like never dies, right? That's the one, right? I also heard is really good. I've not watched it though. The French. Who was it? You? No, it was Shadowbean, right? It's something about like the French, or was that somebody else? Like the Beauty and the Beast, the French thing. What's up with you guys in suggesting French stories all of a sudden? I know it's just a coincidence, but it's just funny to me. Okay. Actually, wait, let me see. That looks not too bad. I think it's moving. Maybe I might have to move it back a little bit more. Or a bit higher and a bit further back. Let's see. Honestly, I think this is just how it's gonna be, the way that it is. I think there's not really much I could do just because of there's no breakdowns. I feel like the impact comes from like some of the holding poses. So we will just have to leave it the way that it is. Yo, literally anime for the first time 2 days ago, and your stream just popped up. Sup? Oh, hey, what's up? How's it going? Wish you the best on your animation journey. Animation's a very big time sink. So, yeah. But hope you're doing well. Hope it's going good. Okay, I'm not gonna try to go and animate all the little details here. Although I feel like the leg... I feel like I want to make the legs just a little longer. You know, the beauty of digital animation and cheat in just lasso tool. So easy, so much easier. Okay, yeah, that's not too bad. Anyone here into the game mouth washing? What? That's a game. I've never heard of that. Mouth washing is something special, is it? Is it, you mean like Listerine mouth washing? I've never heard of that game. Maybe I don't wanna. I don't know. Also, I'm now thinking, like, I don't know if I have enough time to do the breakdowns, but we'll see. I think it'll be good to get, like, maybe some rough breakdowns, just so that we can kind of take a look at how these things will be moving. I think it'd be cool, in general, just to see. I don't think I'll draw the face. Like, this is more like a focus on like the movement and the motions that are there. I think that's really more of like at least the focus for me, is I want to kind of see how they're approaching like the figures, how they're approaching drawing like the movement for these characters. Yeah, I think that's not too bad. Oh, it's a horror. It's a game about Listerine. Can you imagine? It's time consuming but sad. Yeah, yeah. That is basically animations. It's super time consuming, but a lot of fun kind of doing it. Let me see. Okay, I'm just gonna watch and see what one of the transitional moves are. Ooh. Okay, the next transitional move I think I'm gonna do is this one over here. I'm not gonna screenshot it, but I'm just gonna kind of draw it on my own. I'm not gonna put in as much detail because this is a breakdown scene. All I really want to put down is maybe like roughly how the body is transitioning. So if I had to guess, it looks like they're transitioning already into the bending where she's leaning forward. I'm just going to kind of map out roughly the shape of the body. Also, I realize this is like a very interesting movement of shapes here. It's a very unusual movement of shapes. Yeah, because I'm looking at this, I'm like, wait, what is happening with the body? What is going on? Still looks cool though, but oh, I think this is the elbow. Honestly, I'm looking at this, I'm like, I don't know what is happening. Because the body is leaning forward, and it looks like the arm is here, and then the elbow is here. I don't know. It's interesting. And then the arm is like down over here. So, yeah, it's and it's really thin too. I guess maybe this helps with the speed. If I were to take a guess as to like maybe why it's done this way, is because it's to deal with kind of the momentum, maybe. Like, I want to give the benefit of the doubt to like the animators that worked on this and kind of like think through like what was the thought process like when these like changes in proportions and like motions happening. Probably also because this is like one frame, so you probably wouldn't even like notice this pose. Honestly, you'd probably see it and just be like, oh, okay, oh, she's bending, okay, she's transitioning from one pose to the other, and that's all you'd really need to know, which is fair. Yeah, I feel like the pose is emphasizing more of like the bend in the body, and like the head looks like it's really kind of elongated and pushed forwards. Like the arm might actually be here, face is like here. I don't know, this might change how I might have to interpret like the other pose. Yeah, it's a weird pose. I don't know. One of the characters that didn't accidentally wait, what? Yeah, I don't play horror games, so that's probably why I don't know. Explosions. Ooh, no, I've never done explosions before, but that would be a cool one to try out and test out. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because VFX animation's different from like normal character animations. Like, it's a different. If you ever watch like the behind the scenes for animation, back in the day. It's like a completely different team of people who work on VFX animations. So, I don't know. We are going to retry this again. Trying to understand like what's happening here. With the leg, I can kind of see what's going on. Like, I can kind of understand the reasoning. Or, oh, you know what? I think this is in the wrong spot. Jokes. Yeah, I put this in the wrong spot. That's actually here. Whoops, that's why it didn't make any sense. I was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense with like the flow. What the? Ah, okay, that makes more sense. Jokes. Wait, actually, no, I was right. You know what? Maybe I'm not going to do that one. I think the pose I'm going to try to do is this one here. I think this one makes more sense as a lead-up transitional pose. Because it's very similar to this one, but isn't quite there just yet. Yeah, maybe like this. Yeah, the body is super compressed here. Hello. Hello, Castle. Trying to figure out like how do you deal with patience? You know what? That's a good question. I think it kind of just depends on like where you want your level of work to be. You know, because I think like not like while you're doing your work, but how do you deal with your patience? I'm guessing that's in reference to like patience for like drawing or painting. I do think it's going to be different for everybody. Some people don't have the patience to do animation. Because you can be like, oh, I appreciate it. I think this is really cool. But like there's no way around it. Animating takes a lot of time. But it's also the same thing for like realistic painters, right? Like realistic painters take a long time to do their pieces. But if that's not your thing, then it kind of just makes sense. That just might not be your thing, which is totally fine. Trying to figure out which pose I'm on. Yeah, because that's the one I'm doing. And I'm trying to see which one. Ah. Sorry. I'm trying to like look through and flip through which frame to draw next. You know what? Yeah, we're gonna scratch this one. I think it's too close of a frame to this one. We'll actually go into this. I'm gonna draw the shooting away one instead. So I'm still keeping and relying on the pivoting of here. Maybe, yeah, so this, I did think that this one, the last one, I did need to move it more I'm gonna move it like here. And this is where planning comes in, guys. And why planning is so important. So I know we're doing like a study, but if we were to do like a proper like animation and everything, you would want to do a planning. So that could be like storyboarding, and then it would be like the roughs. Right now it's kind of a little bit of an in-between of those because we have the final sequence in front of us. So I don't have to do any planning. What I'm trying to do is really just deconstruct what I'm seeing and to draw it. And to kind of just see if I can like recreate it, to see if there's something I can learn about like the movement and the motion. I guess I never really kind of explained like why you would ever do like animation studies. And that's the reason why I would do it, is because sometimes there's techniques or approaches that you might pick up or learn about in terms of like whether it's drawing the human body, how do you approach motion, action, figure drawing, the lead up to certain poses, like all these transitional things that are a little bit kind of harder to teach. It's easier to kind of just analyze and be like, okay, my favorite animator from my favorite series or movie, they worked on this part. Let's see if I can break down and understand why they did the thing that they did. It's kind of the same thing with doing a master's study of a painting, where you analyze the colors and you analyze the brush strokes maybe to see if there's anything that you can glean from. And it's the kind of like the similar principle with animation, is that when you do an animation study, you're trying to see if there's any special technique that you can like pick up on. And it's kind of funny because again, I can't remember where I keep hearing these things. It might be like podcasts or interviews, but I remember hearing somebody saying like, back then, apparently, if you wanted to learn a certain technique, Disney didn't like have a system of writing their techniques down. And so if an animator wanted to learn something, they would essentially just learn it from their supervisor. Or their supervisor would be really, really like locked up in the information. They were like, oh no, it's a secret. Like we can't tell you. So people had to kind of just figure things out on their own, other than the foundations and the fundamentals, like special techniques for animating, like that kind of stuff. You had to almost just figure out and learn on your own. And then I forgot where it was, but like down the road later, people start just be like, no, let me share with you like what I learned here. Let me share with you like this technique that I learned for like cutting. Like it's a bit of like a shortcut for approaching maybe this type of action or this type of sequence. Like, let me show you like the ropes kind of thing. Let me see. It's this one. Okay. Gotta make the push off believable. So we can have it here. So I'm just trying to figure out the height of everything, like whether the distances feel correct. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Oh, there's a lot of stuff here. Jeez, I just missed some conversation. Sorry, guys. Is VFX and animation mostly CG now? I don't think so. I think in Arcane, for example, they did some 2D animation effects. I think the same thing with Spider-Verse. I could be wrong, but there's some VFX explosions in Spider-Verse that are 2D animated, just to get that kind of flat comic book feel. And I think it's the same thing, same philosophy with Arcane as well. Like to get that almost graphic feel, they 2D animated those. And I think they did the same thing with Mitchell's versus the Machines as well, is that some of the explosions and text that you see was 2D animated. Yeah, explosions is tough because you can get very detailed with it, I've never done it before, but it's whenever I see it, same thing with like water animation and like splashes. It's like, man, that's like it's a whole different type of skill to learn. Oh no, Sasha, I didn't get a chance to say bye, but bye, Sasha. For a lot of patients, what do you do while you're finishing an animation project? As in, do you read something or get into a favorite media? I think sometimes it depends on like how focused I need to be. Honestly, there's times where I just don't listen to anything. Like I'm just hunkering down and I'm just drawing and I'm not playing anything. Like no videos, no podcasts, no music. You just kind of lock in and you just focus on your drawing and that's it. But sometimes if I'm kind of like relaxing and I need like motivation, then I'll listen to some music or some podcast just to keep my kind of head busy as I'm drawing, especially if I kind of know what I'm doing. But if I need to really be focused, then I usually actually turn off my music. But oh, not while you're working, but I know, well, yeah, patience is a hard one. I think it just depends on everybody. People have different types of like levels of animation. Some people just don't have the patience to deal with it, and you just like, I gotta just like keep moving. I gotta keep drawing. This is taking too long. I want to keep moving, and I think having the patience to even stick with the project is a skill and talent to build up. I think it's hard for people to kind of just accept that, oh, if you're patient, you're patient. But no, sometimes you need to develop patience, and part of that is like having the motivation of like an end goal to have to drive you to finish your project, whatever you're working on. Yeah, it doesn't have a screen. It's kind of hard to use. Oh yeah, I would recommend, it's good to save up for a screen tablet. These days it's not too expensive. I think you can get a somewhat decent ones now for maybe $200, I want to say. Don't quote me on the numbers, but way cheaper than they used to be. Like back then, if you wanted a tablet, it was like $1,000 or $2,000, especially if it was like a Wacom, because that was literally the only brand available for screen tablets was a Wacom. But nowadays, I don't know. And nowadays, I think you can look for some cheaper ones. $200, by the way, is not something to scoff at. It's still a lot, but it's now a little bit more accessible. But if you can't afford it, then, you know, just having a pen tablet still works. It's just going to take a little bit more work to get used to the, you know, the hand-eye coordination. Yeah, $200 sounds about right for what I think. Yeah. What'd you miss? I added this one stretch breakdown scene for the kickoff. I think it's tone okay. Yeah, 30-minute warning. Thanks, Castle. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, I don't know what the cheapest one you could get now. Ooh, you know what? Let's play this out. It's obviously not going to be perfect, but I want to see. I want to see how this would look if I played it. It probably is not going to look great. It's probably going to look real janky, but that's okay. I don't think this is a one then. I'm going to maybe push this off and see how it looks. Yeah. Oh, okay, this has to be way spaced out. Okay, that's not too bad. I think that this is much better timing. Maybe okay, so maybe I got it wrong where. Yeah, it's the hunch that can be longer. Actually, maybe it might make it even longer. Just by 3 frames. We'll see where that gets us. honestly, for 4 frames over the course of 50 frames, that's not too bad. Here, let's see what the current one was. Less than $3 for a screen tablet. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like everybody's budget's gonna be different. If $30 gets you a screen tablet that works, honestly, I think that's not bad. Like, you don't really need the buttons. The buttons more just like, it's a nice addition, you know. Oh, you didn't have the screen. Oh, okay, yeah. I think that's normal. I think like once you get the screen, it usually goes into the at least $150 to maybe $200 is my rough estimate. But yeah. Any tips on switching from traditional to digital? I'm so much worse at digital, but I can't really color with traditional. Oh. Digital. I would say just find one software and just practice as you would practice traditionally. So traditional exercises like finding still life studies, doing portrait studies, like practicing drawing, like treat it like you would do traditional studies, but now you have a digital software. And I would say just find one brush that you like. If you're doing Krita, I recommend, to get that more traditional feel, to use this brush, the charcoal pencil medium. I think this one's a really good one for making it feel like it's traditional, but you know, because it has a little bit of texture. Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it, Dragon's Lair, where it's like digital, you have all the layers, you have transform tools and lasso tools, but at its core, it's still just drawing. So you don't have to overthink it. You can kind of just treat it like a regular traditional drawing. And then as you get more familiar with like the tools and the brushes, then you can start playing around with different layers, how that might help you with planning your drawings, like your sketches. Here, I'll kind of open up something. I know we're like kind of coming close to the end, and I don't really think I can do really much more other than play around with timing. But I'll come back to this and kind of just break down my closing thoughts, I guess. But this is something that I did for XPPen's workshop. And so this is kind of the breakdown for how I do like a sketch on digital, which is that you find a bunch of references like you would for traditional, and you would do a bunch of kind of like ideation stages. So like up here is for ideation. So it's planning out like the silhouette, how do you want the pose, what's the outfit going to be, and then figure out more of the technicalities of it, like what's the mannequin and how are the clothing's gonna sit on top of the mannequin. And then afterwards, like, you do a bunch of sketches. So I move them around, but you can kind of imagine all of these tinier drawings. I actually had them underneath this main drawing here. And it's basically just like doing one version and then lowering the opacity, you know, and then drawing on top of it and then cleaning it up. So when you're drawing digitally, it's the same thing as traditional. It's just that now you have more options to fix things and change things up and adjust things, but you're pretty much using the same techniques that you would traditionally as you would while you're drawing digital. Yeah. Steam is almost over. We likely won't have enough time. I have buttons, but too lazy to set them up. Yo, you should set them up. Having the buttons are super, super useful. I use them all the time while I'm drawing. Picking colors for shading. Oh, I probably that's like a. I guess maybe, you know, if I have time, maybe we'll go into it. I'll just close off with this first, and then yeah, maybe I can go into shading. But basically, for this animation sequence, I know this is not really much, but this is kind of maybe the start of how I would do a animation study. So I would kind of lock down the key poses, which I will mark now in red. We only really got a chance to go into like one breakdown, but the red poses are all the key poses, are all the main transitions in the sequence. And at the very end, all I did was basically just play around a little bit with timing. And I would work only with these four poses. And the reason why is because I want to make sure that these ones are transitioning as best as I think they can. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not gonna, it means that I'm not gonna draw any details on it. I'm not gonna really draw the face or anything. What I want to focus more on is like, does the pose, do they hit? Do they transition properly from one to another? Do the proportions match? And then if they do, then I'll start putting in breakdowns, kind of like this one. But you'll notice that the breakdown, I'm not really putting in much details either. I'm just simply marking out the silhouette of it so that I can kind of see the transition from one to the other. And just so for those who are just joining in, this is what I was trying to break down. Oh, maybe I should play it at full speed. Yeah, so it's pretty quick, and the reason why it looks like so smooth is because they have quite a lot of transitions, and they've planned out the timing. Like that timing right there looks really good. Also because there's effects and there's smokes and there's fire and everything. But yeah, that's really smooth. But that's with like all the in-betweens and all the breakdowns. Right now, all I have is 4 drawings. And I think this is always what I'm trying to get across when it comes to animation, though, is that start with as little or with the least amount of frames as possible and try to figure out like whether you have the transitions down. And so that's like making sure like the proportions are working, like the transition from pose to pose is good. Like, does it feel like something feels off? You're still gonna be missing a little bit of it because you don't have the breakdowns in between, you don't have the timing just quite right. So really it's more about focusing on like, okay, does the torso, when she leans in, does that feel like it's transitioning in a believable way? Is the torso and the chest feeling like it's in the same size? Do the legs feel like they're the same size? Are they moving in the same way? And I would like be really, really picky about all these things. And then as you like fine tune just these 4 or 3 frames, then you can start adding some breakdowns in between. And animation is this is kind of how I like to describe it, is that animation feels like this, whereas like this is your scope of your animation, and you're kind of working in animation like this. You're kind of going in between, back and forth, and kind of going and slowly honing in and filling in the gaps as you're going. Because if you kind of do it the other way, where you're just going 1 and then 2 and 3 and 4, that's called straight ahead. But if you're doing kind of like a combat sequence, this is kind of hard to do, to plan out your sequence. So you kind of want to slowly go back and forth and in between and develop the gaps as you go. And then once you fill up enough of the information, then you can start going in between and filling up in more details of the gaps. But you want to work in it bit by bit as you go, so that this way if you make any mistakes or if you kind of mess up the timing or anything, you already have the main core poses figured out. All the in-between stuff should be there to help support the main poses. Yeah, I think that's about it. It's 4:59, so yeah, this one, this is a little bit of a special stream, so to speak, in a way. It's not our usual approach to streaming, but I hope you guys had a fun time kind of just chilling and drawing with me and animating while I kind of talk about animation, do a little bit of an animation combat sequence, I guess, breakdown. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We will be back next week. Well, I won't be back next week. If this is your first time joining us, we alternate instructors. So next Sunday is going to be Iggy. And Jesse will be streaming on Saturday, and Iggy will be streaming on Sunday, I believe. But yeah, so before we go, you know how it goes, have our closing statements. So welcome to our stream. It is the end, but if you don't know who we are Wing Canvas. We are a YouTube channel where we make art tutorials, videos on tips, tricks, and drawing advice to better help our fellow art nerds in this art community of ours. Our mission at Wing Canvas is to make art education easily accessible to everyone, so be sure to tune in live for free sessions every Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you're an art nerd too, be sure to check out our social media in the description below and check out our website for our class offerings, where you can get critique, guidance, and encouragement from our instructors. Because we're not just a YouTube channel, we're a school of illustration. And I also want to personally thank our incredible Patreon and YouTube members for supporting our mission. Our YouTube members can chat with our instructors and see video drafts before they're released. Patreon members can level up their artwork with classes, Q&A, and live critiques and personal support like drawovers from instructors. And so if you want to help support the channel or accelerate your learning, consider becoming a member. And that's it. That's the end of our stream. I know I saw some people kind of hop in at the end. Sorry, I was kind of like just rambling on as we were getting a little bit close to the end. But thank you everybody for joining us. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the atypical stream of a reaction kind of to like different animation sequences and then doing a little bit of the beginning of an animation study. But yeah, that's kind of it. Hope you guys all have a good weekend, have a good rest of the night, or if it's night already, good night, I guess. And yeah, hope you guys are all doing well. Bye bye.